Hi, g'day, hi and welcome. Oh, hey. That's not supposed to smear. Okay, engaging silver pellet. Kind of crowded in here. But I'll have you know, I will have you know, my buddy Paul, his truck, the back of his truck starting to look like my car. Yeah, rolling toolboxes. I'm like, your car's a, I get in his truck, I was like, your truck's a total mess. Yeah, the pot calling the kettle black there, eh? But, yeah, I joke about it, so. But, yeah, that's work vehicles. Oh, I am complete, I'm a piece of jelly today. Friggin' Manitoba vehicles. My favorite tree ever. Last week, okay, guys, you're not gonna believe this, but I made like $400 on dandelions last week. Picking out dandelions, friggin' tortured dandelions, and made a couple of $100, you know, knocking down Manitoba maples. Yesterday's tree falling there, I felt really good about that. I'm gonna have to show you guys how I do it and stuff like that. I'm not saying I'm the best at it, but you know, there's just things that you learn over time, and if you can share that knowledge, like I show my buddy how I do it, you know, just to show him, and like he's got the Husky 372, 72cc saw. The thing's a beast. I call it the pig dog because he's sick. But that's his only saw. We tried to get his other saw going. He goes, yeah, I started not that long ago. He says, I started earlier this year. And he goes, before that, I started like 10 years ago. So I tried it. There's no fucking way that thing's going to run. And the cap on it, it's an old Johnson, but like this cap like screws in. It is the worst cap design I've ever seen on a chainsaw. Almost impossible. It's a big cap. Nice big size filler cap, but it's just the way it screws in there. Holy jeez, I'm like, what were they thinking? Clearly they weren't. Engineers. Damn engineers. No, if you've ever used the Husky 272, 372, I've used those. That's probably the biggest saws I've ever used is the 272 and the 372s, right? I don't think I've ever tried anything bigger than that. And I've tried, like around here, every second guy has one of those that works in the bush, because they're just a really good saw. You know, like if you want to plunge into a tree, that's the saw you want. You want to knock down trees, that's the saw you want. You want to saw big tree butts, that's the saw you want. You want to run a ridiculously long bar, that's the saw you want. They're a fantastic saw for $1,500, right? But they're a pig dog. They weigh a ton. I think the 272 with gas and oil in it was 22 pounds with an 20-inch bar. That's freaking heavy. You know what I mean? That's heavy. Now it's heavy in the sense that it you got to carry it around 8 hours. You know what I mean? Like Paul, he limbs with that sucker. I wonder what he's doing. Paul limbs with that thing, and I could tell when he's getting like near the end of the day, you can tell he's just beat. I'm like, dude, grab one of my little saws. Problem is mini beast. I don't know if I can fix this Traeger. I tried to fix it yesterday and it didn't go back into place. So I don't know, guys. I might be in for mini beast. Like, he still runs fine. He starts great, but the trigger keeps letting go. I think that wire's just too done. It wasn't the right wire anyway. Trigger wire anyway. So it probably just bent out of shape, and maybe I could bend it back or something. But you know, is what it is. You know, it's not like that saw hasn't made me a ridiculous amount of money for such a cheap saw. You know what I mean? $200, and you know the amount of zeros behind. Return on investment was just like a chainsaw is a good return on investment. Like you make your money back fairly quick with a chainsaw, especially when you use them just about every week. And anyway. the tree's leaning that way, but you got a back bow on the trunk that's twisted. Which way's the tree gonna go? You know what I mean? Well, the tree's gonna fall that way. Yeah, but what's it gonna do on its way down? It's gonna do a pirouette, and you know, like it's a barber chair waiting to happen with a spinning pirouette. You know what I mean? Like, you know, it's good and dangerous. We'll just say that it's really good and dangerous. And that good and dangerous is what I'm trying to eliminate. So when I showed him, first off, he's got a new chain on it, his saw for the job, right? But chains go dull, right? And I mean, maybe he hit the ground a couple of times. Cutting those vines, they're all full of sand. There's a lot of sand in the bark. Things go dull. So I grabbed the saw and I couldn't even notch the tree hardly at all with it. And I could tell by the way his saw was running. Like I could just tell by the way it runs. You know, if your saw's dull, you know, I could just tell by the way it's revving. Like those big saws don't rev high. When they're revving high, it means you're just spinning in the tree, right? And that's harder on the saw. So I was like, your saw's dull. So I got him to sharpen the saw, and cause I couldn't even plunge with it. My little 39cc or 38cc Echo was cutting and plunging better than what his 72cc saw was, because even though my chain's worn out, it's sharp. Like it doesn't cut straight for long. Like it's fine for limbing and stuff. My little saw, but like for big cut stuff like that, you need a good, you know, you need your chain to be cutting straight. And my chain, that chain, I haven't got it sharpened to the point where, like I got to resharpen it a few more times to get it to start to cut straight. It took me forever. I mean, that chain is from the 1990s, guys. It's the original chain on that chainsaw. It was completely, the teeth were like, they weren't rounded on it, but it's a full, like the tooth is almost a full length, but it was dull, so it's taken me a while, quite a few sharpenings to bring it back. It's cutting okay, but I can't fall big trees with it because, you know, the power, and I don't want to get stuck in the tree, right? With the little saw. So his saw is the one we got to rely on. His still cuts straight, but it was dull. So once we sharpened it up, like, you never wait till your saw goes completely dull. Like, I would give a touch-up sharpening, even if it's like 1 or 2 swipes, 3 swipes per tooth, before you cut every big tree. You know, like, don't look at it, oh, well, no, it looks like we're wasting time. No, that's the process of cutting trees. Don't be afraid to sharpen your saw, right? And if you do it quick touch-up, you don't have to spend 15-20 minutes sharpening saw. You just do a couple of passes with the file on each tooth, and as long as you can keep your angle, like that thing will cut like a charm, right? So we got it sharpened up. It still wasn't as sharp as I would have liked it, but I cut, and the other thing I noticed is he's never filed the bar. You know, the lip on the bar, right? You have to file that and keep that smooth, or else your saw gets hung up. So after I did my plunge cut, after I felled the tree, I said, Paul, come and take a look at this. And I said, this is what I'm saying where your saw is dull, and why you got it. The next time we use your saw, this is what's hanging up your saw. That little lip, and you can see the lines in the stump of the tree from that lip catching, right? And I said, the reason why you got to get rid of that is it slows down your saw. Your saw is not smooth, and it means you don't have full control over your saw. It means you're more likely to catch the tree on the way when it goes over it, and it'll take your saw with it. Like, you don't want anything that can catch the tree. You want it to slip through the tree as fast as possible.